Hello,
Hi, glad to see you again.
nice to see you. Were your vacation? You
Yeah, we have long
right.
vacation. I went
Mhm.
home.
Now in Italy, at the end of this week, it starts a brief period of vacation, actually just 3 or 4 days for Easter, the Easter
Oh,
break, and yeah.
aha. How many days will you have a Easter vacation?
No, for Easter, just 2 days, but then we have them over the weekend. So it's like at the end of the day, they're like 4 or 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is also a national holiday in Italy next Friday.
Mm.
April 25th is a national holiday in Italy. So many people, for example, schools close until that day for the entire week.
Is
So
it
they combine Easter break and this other vacation.
is it Easter? I mean, you celebrate. Uh, how to say it? It's greater than Christmas. Which one is greater? Is it Easter or Christmas?
Um, well, Christmas.
Christmas. Ah.
Of course, from a religious point of view, both of them are important because in Christmas we celebrate the birth
Mhm.
of Christ, and then for Easter the resurrection. So both of them are important, of course. But where, for example, the holidays are much longer for Christmas. For
Mm.
Christmas, we have like 2 or 3 weeks
Ah, yeah, yeah.
holidays. Yes, at
Mm.
university and schools, we have a very long holiday period. While for Easter, as I said, we just have 3, 4 days, and that's
Yeah.
it.
Mhm, mhm.
So,
We have Idil
but
Idil
from a
Fitri.
religious point of view, both of them are important. Just that Christmas, yes, is bigger. Usually, people, during Christmas, as you said, for your vacation,
Mhm.
people go home from their families. In the Easter period, usually they don't because we have just a few days. So if your family of origin is quite far, of course you
Mhm.
cannot reach them. At least it's more difficult.
Wow, interesting. Okay.
This could be a topic for your studies, for your religious studies.
Yeah. Um, okay. I have to open my note first. Let me take a note. Wait a minute. Okay. So shall we start?
Yes, sure. I will share my
So
presentation.
me
I'll
get
try not to
get
be
ready. Let
too
me open
wordy.
first. Yeah, I open ceremonially. I open this. Let me do it. Let me open it. Um, okay. Wait a minute. I got a problem. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
wabarakatuh.
wabarakatuh.
First of all,
Warahmatullahi
let
wabarakatuh.
me thanks to God that for the second for lecture series too, we can make it happen. This is like a dream come true. That we got a little problem in our country. They call it efficiency. So there are many activities are canceled, probably 2 months.
Oh,
Um, but
oh, so
luckily we have
sorry
you.
about that. I didn't know that.
But luckily we have you. offer us an event that we can run this program. So we are very lucky to having you here. But school
I'm
is
lucky
still
too.
running. We just cancel some activities.
Ah,
So first of all, I would like to greet our lecturer. I would like to introduce our lecture here. Here we have Mem Jumharia Jamaran. She is a lecturer of linguistics. Unfortunately, she got a problem with her camera, so she couldn't,
Yeah.
you know.
Hello, Miss Giulia. How to call Miss Giulia? Miss Giulia?
hi.
Julia?
Julia is like an
Julia. Oh,
international
Julia
name.
in
So
English, yeah.
Julia.
Okay. Hello. So sorry, I have problem in my camera. Nice to see you,
Oh,
Miss
don't worry
Giulia.
about that.
Yeah. Next time I try to.
And then
Yeah,
also we have
you.
our Giulia here, Ma'am Giulia Astuti. She is also a lecturer for a discourse. She studied discourse during her PhD. Ma'am Giulia Astuti, where are you? I saw her just recently. Ma'am Giulia Astuti. Oh,
Sorry, ma'am. Sorry, ma'am. Because my voice is I can't speak loud.
yeah, Ma'am Giulia
Um,
Astuti got a problem with the
yeah, we have
voice.
the same name but different. Julia with different letters. Well, I'll stand by, but I can't. My voice is right. Sorry, so sorry.
Sorry, Julia, Miss Julia, Ma'am Julia got a flu and she got a cough, so she couldn't turn on her camera too. She is sick, but she's still attend our meeting this afternoon. And here we have more than 50 students attending this program. The student has Mem Nirwana also here. I think this is Mem Nirwana, who also doing the PhD and doing a discourse analysis too. So discourse analysis is quite popular and many people like it. So we really thank you that Julia, you offer us this title and this theme. So I think this will be this we are excited to hear from you. So everybody, Professor Giulia Magazzù is from Rome University. Rome University is very famous university, and it's a high rank in the world. So we are very lucky to having you here. And I don't want to spend our time talking, and I would like directly to offer to Professor Giulia Magazzù, and the title of the lecture today is Discourse Shape the World, Discourse Analysis and Pragmatics. Giulia, this is your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rose. I'm so glad to be here again. And I feel lucky. It's me who feels lucky to having the chance to talk about what I like, literally for the other side of the world, because even if we are online virtually, but I'm on the other side of the world. So, and this is also an exciting thing about how nowadays technology likely helps us in this. And so happy about it, even though, well, I hope one day I'll be able to come there, maybe to visit you, or you can come here, and I'll be glad to meet you in person. And also for my students, for our students, it would be very they could get a lot from you. They could be enriched by you. Can you see my presentation? Yes.
Sure. Yeah, you can see it.
Okay. Okay, good. Well, yes, today my talk would be in general about discourse studies, how discourse is important for our society, for our knowledge of the world, and how we realize that actually discourse shapes how we view the world. Of course, also according to the different cultures, the different background knowledge. Well, probably my background knowledge would be different from yours, but just because we're from different countries, very different countries, very different cultures, and so our background is different, but that doesn't mean that one is better, one or another is better. They're just difference, and differences enrich our world, our life, and diversity enriches our life. So first of all, I wanted to talk about the notion of power in discourse. We can say that in short, power comes from a privileged access to social resources such as education, knowledge, wealth, and the access to these resources provides authority, status, influence, which is also enabling a mechanism for the domination and the control of some groups. We have several strands of research on language and power, discourse and power. We have the mainstream one, first of all, and the second stream. The mainstream tradition, the origins of which are located in Weber's study of authority, tends to focus on the corrective power of the state and its institution. And this tradition mainly sees the view of power as dominance and focuses on the several abilities of the actors involved. And then we have another strand, the second stream tradition, research on power, which has been mainly concerned with the significance of its persuasive influence. And here I quote Gramsci because I know, Rose, that you dealt with Gramsci. You told me, right? Am I right with this? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Rose, am I right that you dealt with Gramsci in your PhD,
Yes.
during your PhD? Maybe you told me.
Yes. I am
Yeah,
doing.
that is one.
I work on Gramsci, on the
Okay.
prison notebook and cultural selection. Yeah.
Okay. That is why when I came into Gramsci, I said, okay, I have to quote him since Rose told me that she's an expert. So what is important in Gramsci is the concept of hegemony, which describes the mechanisms through which dominant groups in society succeed in persuading the subordinate groups to accept the former's own moral, political, and cultural values and institutions. And so, in this case, power is not exercised through the force, but with routine. And within this framework, discourse constructs hegemonic attitudes, opinions, beliefs, and these beliefs appear natural and common sense. So, developing further this idea of hegemony, Gramsci argues that it is through the cultural formations of individuals, by the institutions of civil society, such as the family, the educational system, churches, and so on, that dominant groups in society can gain a more stable position for themselves. Also, he points out that dominant groups have to work at staying dominant. They attempt to secure domination, firstly by constructing a ruling group through building and maintaining political alliances. And situated, talking about discourse, situated closer to this second stream of research, so to this traditional Gramsci, we have the Foucault theoretical model for the analysis of power in discourse. So rather than seeking power just as a repressive phenomenon, Foucault sees the concept of power as productive. This is the model of Foucault, as a complex and continuously evolving web of social and discursive relations. For example, instead of assuming that a powerful person in an institutional setting is in fact all powerful, Foucault argues that power is more a form of action or relation between people that is negotiated and contested in interaction and is never fixed or stable. So Foucault does not regard power as an already given entity that is maintained through the ideological operations in society. We can say that intertwined with our understanding of power, ideology refers to the ways in which a person's beliefs, opinions, and value systems intersect with the broader social and political structure of the society in which they live. And so it is an important assumption that of this presentation today, that language is influenced by ideology. And moreover, that all texts, whether spoken or written, and even visual language, are shaped and determined by a web of political beliefs and social-cultural practice. That's why I entitled my presentation Discourse Shapes the World, because discourse shapes the way we live, the way we see things. And ideology, of course, is very important. As we know, language is never neutral, and texts, be them written, spoken, visual, they can never be neutral or disinterested. So it's very important. This is just a brief historical development of ideology. We can say that this term was coined in the first 18th by the French philosopher de Tracy, but then the term ideology is normally associated with Karl Marx and with his famous treaty, the German ideology, which is a project developed in 1845 and then published in several languages. Then we have another scholar, Althusser, who was one of the first to describe power as a discursive phenomenon, arguing that ideas are inserted into the arrangements of socially and politically determined practices and rituals. So he highlights the significant roles of ideologies in reproducing or changing political relations through the so-called ideological state apparatuses, such as the church, the legal system, and so on. Okay, these are all the apparatuses that shape our ideology, our discourse, of course, family, the legal system, religious institutions. Of course, it depends on the culture of the nation we belong to, but more or less, these are all the contexts where our discourse, our ideology is shaped. We should pay attention to the difference between language and discourse. There is an important distinction between the two. Discourse is what happens when language gets done, whereas language refers to the more abstract set of patterns and rules that operate simultaneously at different levels in the system, like the grammatical level, phonological level, semantic level, for example. Well, discourse refers to the instantiation of these patterns in real context of use. So the discourse is the application of these rules in the context. Okay, so discourse works above the level of grammar and semantics, let's say. And against this conception of language and discourse is scholars researching interconnections between language and ideology build from the premise that patterns of discourse are framed in a web of beliefs, opinion, and interests. For instance, the following examples differ only in terms of the verb, of the main verb used. The minister explained the cutbacks were necessary, which suggests an unavoidable action, which with an helpful explanation. An alternative framing. The minister claimed the cutbacks were necessary. It makes the justification less convincing, okay, because we don't have an explanation, we have a claim. So the difference in the verb is important. And non-factive verbs. The minister imagined the cutbacks were necessary. So it suggests that maybe the minister might be mistaken in their belief. So this is an important distinction. Here you have another example. The point is that when language becomes embodied as discourse, it often throws into relief the totality of other possible ways of representing. So ideological standpoint in language can therefore be productively explored through comparisons between different texts, especially when the texts cover the same topic. Here you see two short texts that illustrate this comparative aspect to critical linguistic analysis. Prime Minister Theresa May explained that Britain would start the formal process for leaving the European Union by the end of March 2017. Unelected Prime Minister Theresa May has claimed that Brexit gives her the right to reshape Britain in her own image. So, in the aftermath of the vote in June 2016 for a British exit from the European Union, the popular press was obviously divided. And these fragments from a right-wing and left-wing tabloid, they are from two different tabloids, hardly need any linguistic analysis to unveil how two ideological stances through a technique known as functionalization. But in contrast with its upfront unelected, Text B attempts to delegitimize May's standing by referencing her accession as prime minister without a general election after the resignation of her predecessor, David Cameron. Also, these texts feature two of the verbs described in the examples above. So we have the material explained by May, which is presupposed as true, but the use of claimed in B contains no such appeal to external validity, and instead intimates that May's intentions for Brexit are only egoistically driven. So you see how, with just the verb choice, the meaning, the ideology behind a sentence is revealed. This is, again, another example from news headlines, which are a very important field of linguistic analysis, of discourse analysis. In the first example, okay, in this text, only the first one has a main verb in its headline, while D consists only of nouns without verbs. Moreover, the verbs in C is transitive, It takes a direct object, such as the action performed by the grammatical subject of the sentence is clearly enacted upon the object. And the transitive pattern is further played out through verbs in the opening text. So killed, firing on, while the agents involved and affected entities are both named, counted, and described. Most of them children. By contrast, the main action in D is expressed through a single noun incident, and the action has been nominalized, in other words. So nominalization offers a less specific representation of an action, largely because it stands for a process while simultaneously elevating those involved in the process. And notice how incident is repeated twice in the opening text, while another nominalization, that is loss, which stands for the process, somebody lost something, is used. Okay, so what I am trying to demonstrate with these examples is that linguistic analysis offers a useful analytic tool for probing an ideological standpoint across different portrayals in the media of the same event or the same experience. Here we have the portrayal of the same event, like in the example of Theresa May, but from different points of view. And this is here that pragmatics plays a role, because by pragmatics we mean the not the literal meaning of the words, like right? We mean the inner meaning, what we infer, what we derive from an utterance, from a text. Of course, and here I have to say just something briefly. Let's say that we have to say that the structure of newspapers' physical and online presence has also been consistently updated to reflect the reader and customer lifestyle focuses. For example, the Times moved to a tabloid-sized edition to attract more readers, and whilst The Guardian announced that from 2018 onwards, the paper would no longer be printed in a broadsheet. Okay. And also the websites were updated because they need to, follow the evolution also of the audiences. And I would like now to focus my presentation on language, discourse, and politics. Of course, language and politics are closely connected. And the study of this connection has been a key concern since antiquity, since, Aristotle, Plato, okay? Aristotle said that people are by nature political animals, okay? So we have a very long tradition, of course, in this. And there are linguistic approaches that can be called political. For example, critical linguistics, critical discourse analysis have changed the view of language as an essentially transparent and neutral medium by concentrating on topics that are thought to be of particular social-political relevance. Political rhetoric, media discourse, racism, nationalism, sexism, education. So all the contemporary approaches to critical discourse analysis deal specifically with the reproduction of political power abuse, domination through political discourse, including the various forms of resistance, discursive dominance. And political discourse analysis can therefore be subsumed under a broader critical approach to discourse. So what constitutes political discourse is a matter of interpretation. So what is political discourse? Basic answer is that political discourse is discourse produced by politicians, of course. And there are many studies on this by Fairclough, Chilton. Okay, there are many scholars that dealt with political discourse. However, what is political depends very much on the viewpoint of the speaker. Because political discourse is not just made by politicians. We also make political decisions. We as citizens, not just when we vote for a politician, of course, but when we make decisions in our everyday life. Consumer choices, lifestyle choices, personal activism. For example, I choose not to eat meat and fish anymore to become vegetarian for an ethical choice. And this is a political choice on myself. It's a personal activism, of course. So this is a political choice. So it's not true that just politicians use political discourse. Okay, this is important. It's an important distinction. We have also citizens, common citizens that make political choices. Okay, so individual decisions about our health, about our values, problems. Okay, so nowadays this is a contemporary political expression. So we don't just have politicians, but also common people, activists. Also due to the distrust in politicians and political institutions. Especially, I would say, in Western countries, especially in Europe. Well, in Italy, we have a lot of distrust in politicians. Now we're going to look at some strategies used by politicians. Probably you already know some of them because they are related to pragmatics, to discourse analysis, to cohesion and coherence. These linguistic strategies are ways of delivering information implicitly, presupposition and implicature. So they do not just assert an idea, but speakers and writers can, to a certain extent, evade responsibility for what they say. Of course, they are not just used in political discourse. They are common in everyday conversations. They are prevalent in advertising, for example, because these strategies can make it more difficult for the audience to reject certain views communicated in this way. They are also widely used by journalists in political interviews to put politicians on the spot. Metaphors. Metaphor has long been recognized as an important feature of political rhetoric and as an important means of conceptualizing political issues and constructing worldviews. So a metaphor is basically the means by which we understand one concept in terms of another. And the different concepts in a metaphorical construction are known as the target domain and the source domain. So the target domain is the topic or concept that you want to describe through the metaphor, while the source domain refers to the concept that you draw upon in order to create a metaphorical construction. Common metaphors in English are life is a journey, is the most famous, embodied in certain expressions such as I have no direction in my life. We are at a crossroads. Should certainly go places, and so on. There are also ideas related to food, half-baked ideas. So these are basic, familiar concepts, but they give a very clear idea of what we are saying. And pronouns. Just as in advertising, pronoun use by political speakers has an important persuasive function when it comes to referring to themselves, their party or the nation as a whole. Like passives, nominalizations, pronouns can be used to obscure responsibility and agency. And pronouns, particularly we, can be either inclusive or exclusive. And in political discourse, it is inclusive we that often predominates, as it helps to share the responsibility for actions that are controversial. An inclusive we is also effective if a government wants to persuade a nation to go to war or to accept an unpopular policy. Okay, like here, there's an example where politicians use we, the inclusive we, to share responsibility with other actions. Like when David Cameron said, "We're all in this together," or Gordon Brown's "Roll up our sleeves." So again, they refer to the government and to also to Britain, to the people as a whole. These are strategies. These are tactics used, of course, by politicians. Then we have euphemisms. A euphemism is a figure of speech that uses mild, inoffensive, or vague words as a means of making something seem more positive than it might otherwise appear. And euphemisms are commonly used in political discourse for controversial subjects such as war, old age, poverty, unemployment. And thus, politicians might talk about senior citizens or regime change, which is the removal of a foreign government by force. The expressions disinvestments, downsizing, right sizing are other terms referring to the laying off of workers. So let's say they are used, this is another strategy used to, keep the argument milder. Parallelisms, this is another strategy. A device is the expression of several ideas through the series of similar grammatical structures, and it's often used by politicians when they want to make parts of their message stand out. Here you have some examples. We shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe. Or the repetition of the same sentence, education, 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 the same word, sorry. Or reason will prevail, reason must prevail, reason will prevail. So this parallelism are used to reinforce the idea conveyed. And these strategic functions that political discourse may have, these are suggested by Chilton, the scholar Chilton. Coercion, which largely depends on the speaker's resources and power, and it is not always linguistic. For example, in dictatorship, people are often controlled by the use of force, and even democracy still use force legally, as in the dispersal of the crowd or demonstrators, for example. Resistance, opposition, protest. Many of the discursive strategies employed by people in position of power may be resisted by institutionally weaker persons or the relatively powerless. We point out in a number of places the various resistance strategies people have at their disposal, such as the creation of, such as formal slang or secret languages to oppose the power, or humorous discourses that employ satire, irony against politicians. This is another example. Legitimation and delegitimation. Because political actors cannot act by physical force alone. The power usually has to be legitimated so that the audience believes in their right to be obeyed. And this is another important notion. And representation and misrepresentation. According to Chilton, political control involves the control of information. Some amount of information may be given, but perhaps less than enough to satisfy the needs and interests of the hearers. A misrepresentation in its extreme form may be lying, but it also includes denial or evasive tactics. Euphemism is another example of misrepresentation. It's a good example of this, because it uses other words to represent something bad. Yeah, and coercion, as I was saying, is exercised through the use of legal sanctions, the agenda setting, censorship, especially in some countries. Resistance strategies, we already mentioned them, the sacred languages, humor, protests, activism in general. The legitimation strategies, like when you want to politicians self-justify themselves or how they present the other politicians, for example, the negative presentation of another politician from a linguistic point of view, of course, is a tactic of the legitimation. Okay, and representation means representation. So in practice, we can say that all of these strategies are usually interconnected and they can be found in other forms of discourse as well, not just in political discourse, of course. However, the ways in which these political strategies are enacted through choice in language can be explored through close linguistic analysis. And another example, one final example I wanted to give you is the use of the discourse of social media, which is an ever-growing discourse area of the internet. Most of the news outlets, print media as well as broadcast media channels that have been discussed have a significant online presence, maintaining huge website operations that accommodate access to discourse that is largely unchecked by time or location. And we had the rise of social media platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, as well as blogs or websites, have contributed significantly to online interaction between internet users, and the discourse interaction. So they have a huge power. The proliferation of online content and the rise of social media, often referred to in terms of emergence of Web 2.0, the programming model, which enables the participatory websites, has led inevitably to increased scholarly interests in language, in the language of the internet. There's a famous book by David Crystal, the famous linguist. He wrote about the language of the internet. Linguists have investigated social media language through not just on traditional textual analysis, but by analyzing across the entire multimodal ensemble. So we have another scholar, Zappavigna, for example. He carries out a thorough analysis of the language of Twitter, and the other works investigate the linguistic functions of the convention for which this particular social network is most famous, which is the popularization of the hashtag. For example, employing Halliday's systemic functional linguistics, the hashtag is shown to possess more than just an experiential function, as Halliday said, that classifies what a post is about. So also the discourse of social media is very important and needs attention. So just to come to a conclusion, in this very condensed presentation, I just wanted to give you the idea that language, throughout history, language is more than just a communication tool. It is a very powerful mechanism that shapes our reality, our knowledge, reinforces the existing power structures, and can challenge also the status quo. So the words we choose influence how we perceive ourselves and the others. So think about the discourse of newspapers. According to different ideologies, they use the different words. Language of politicians, language of social media. So by critically analyzing language patterns, and asking for an inclusive communication, we can also give power to marginalized voices and foster a more equal society where language is a bridge and not a barrier to social justice, to communication, to inequality. Okay, this is very, very important. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much. This is a huge topic.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I usually with my students I devote an entire course to it, an entire more or less 30 hours of lessons. So yes, it's a huge one. Mm.
It's very interesting about the use of language in political field, in social interaction. Sometimes I feel that studying language is very important. It is the soul. It's something like language is alive. Yeah. So
Yes, it's not just language, not just grammar, as I said, it's something more.
yeah.
Mm.
Now I think I would like to invite anyone, participants, to react to this lecture. Either you want to give your own opinion, or either you want to ask some questions. And I hope that
I'm open to new, especially just because we come from very different cultures.
Yeah.
Of course, I mentioned those examples that are close to my reality. But if you give me
Let's
examples
invite from the students first, members.
Okay. Any students want to give some questions? I know Irshad is here and Fairuz Fuadi also here. Fairuz Fuadi is working on allegory. Yes, he is here. And then I was a bit confused in understanding allegory that he is digging. And some people here are, I think there are around more than 80 students attending this lecture. So please, you might leave your question in the chat room, or you might directly asking question to Professor Giulia. Anybody?
Okay. While we're waiting for the students' questions, members, maybe it's better. Would you like to give me opportunity to share share knowledge with me, Giulia, because the topic is to really relate and update to the students, since for this semester we are studying semantic, and I try to combine with pragmatic, that talking about semantic is really related to pragmatic, since pragmatic is focused on what the speaker intentions. Okay. The material actually give us a broader insight, since you know that some of our students are interested in analyzing discourse analysis and combining with the pragmatic analysis, and some also interested in doing critical discourse analysis. But you know that critical discourse analysis is still difficult to our students. So so we just but we give them opportunity to learn, to start. Why not? Yeah. Okay. Talking about political discourse, there are target domain and source domain. Since as you discussed just now. Okay, and political discourse is related to lifestyle and also activities and politician related to also personal choices are related to the politician. Some of our students also had conducted such research, and things later on some students will be interested to do the same studies that are related to political discourse. Although some students still think it's difficult to do discourse analysis, but we try to support it, encourage them to do discourse analysis. So maybe Giulia may give some insight or some topic related to political discourse or even critical discourse analysis for our students, in order they can do new studies, not just the similar to the previous studies, so they can start with the new how to say new scopes, or new source domain, especially in discourse analysis. I think political discourse now is interesting, since we have just conducted we just experienced election for our new presidents. So I think it's very interesting. So, okay, especially for the use of some language style, as you just now say that there is a euphemism, and there is also metaphor. This is a very interesting studies, to in discourse analysis. When could you give our new insight to our students to
there's
find out
a famous
also,
there's a good book for students. I don't have it here, but it's Language and Power. Okay.
We just use the common book for Introduction to English Semantics and Pragmatics, and if you don't mind, you would like to share your book that you always
This is the
usually
book. If you're interested, I put you just the link. It's Language and Power, resource book for students. So it contains a lot of also of activities and exercises. It has a chapter on the language of advertising, where you can analyze text advertising. A chapter devoted to the news, social media, politics. So there are many topics. It's a very good book because it's for students, so it's very clear. And it contains a lot of examples. That is what our students need, examples, texts to work on. Usually during my lessons, I do not dedicate 1.5 hours to theory because it would be too boring for them. So usually I do theory, of course, a theoretical part, then I devote 40 minutes, 45 minutes, then it depends, to practice. So we do text analysis, we discuss so that they do not get bored or, get asleep during the lessons. I don't know at your university, in your lessons, but usually my students get easily bored with theory, so they need practice. They want practice. They ask for practice, for analysis.
They need more practice, not just the theory. Just give them the theory.
You need to apply the theory, otherwise it's just blah blah blah, and that's it.
Okay.
I think that's an interesting question. That's very productive question, Ibu Jumharia Jamare. That's finally, we got an area a very practical book that apply for students. Thank you for asking that. It's inspired me also to ask questions. But I would like
That's
to.
why I asked that.
I would like to invite students to ask some questions before I ask questions. Any students, please? Andi Virus, do you have a question? Andi Virus, do you want to talk something?
Yes, ma'am. So basically, this is huge topic, but I have no questions. But I'm really thank you for Miss Julia for giving us for deliver our topics about politic discourse. And that was really interesting. It just language is not the powerful of the tool of communications, but also tool that shapes reality, influence stuff. Yeah, that's it. Maybe I got no
Okay.
one question, but I'm really
Thank
grateful.
you. Thank you very much. I'm happy that, the students that are, our evaluators also appreciated this.
Other interesting topic that you are talking about is the use pronoun, which is very political. I just realized that.
Yeah.
Most politicals say that we,
Yes.
but it's interesting in Indonesia, the meaning of we, there are two in Indonesia. We sometimes have said kami, mean we, and sometimes we said kita, which is also we, but it has a quite different meaning. But I think it's
like the inclusive, exclusive we.
Yeah.
The politicians.
Yeah, we mean kita mean we in English mean you and I. So kita.
Okay.
Kami mean I and them. Means
That's
also
the inclusive and exclusive we. That's the same.
yeah,
Good.
yeah.
It's interesting. So I learned a new thing that also in Indonesian, they exist also in Indonesia. We don't have this difference in Italian, for example.
But I haven't noticed that what kind of kita or kami when the politicians say kami, when the politicians say kita. I haven't noticed. I haven't observed. But that interesting point that probably in the future I'm going to observe, probably writing an article on that. But that's very interesting.
I'm glad that I gave you also food for thought to reflect on your own language, not just on English.
Yeah, do you know a little in Bahasa Indonesia?
In Bahasa Indonesia? No.
So any question for students members, please invite the students.
Irshad, I think Irshad also have some question. Irshad, please ask questions. Very quiet. And
yeah, they're also my students. They don't even ask questions.
Yeah.
They never have questions, problems. But then, like 2 days before the exam, they come to me. Oh, I have this question, I have this problem.
So many questions.
But during the course, I asked you to ask questions, and now you can.
Salwa, Salwa?
You have given them time.
I think Salwa want to ask some questions. Please, Salwa. Salwa is run away. Another interesting point is about rhetoric, metaphor in a politics. Would you please suggest me a book?
Yeah.
Metaphor is very interesting.
Yes, of course, because they convey many ideas from the very basic metaphors, like the ones related to journey, food, and so on, to there are more complex metaphors, of course, that are used by politicians, not just politicians, can be used in any field again, advertising, the media.
Sometimes it's difficult to differ between the metaphor and simile. How to say simile?
Simile. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're kind of different because in similes you make a comparison, the parallelism.
Metaphor, yeah. Okay, so what's
And also, you said about this on Althusser about the discursive and the discourse. Is the discursive is different from discourse?
You mean language, maybe language and discourse?
Yeah, language.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, because language is just all the rules, the grammatical rules, the semantics, all the rules that we follow, and then that we apply to create discourse
Mm-hmm. And then the discourse about the
in
sense of
context. Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Your voice just.
I am very far from. I mean, the discourse is when the language is done, right? And then
Yeah, the application. Yeah.
the application, and it has a sense. It has we feel the language, right? You see, when we feel the language, the discourse.
Yeah, sure.
Ah.
And all the consequences that we have from what we say, based on the context, the situational context, our background knowledge.
Is it the lang and the farol?
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah, it's the same.
Okay.
Lang and parol, the same.
So, our student is very quiet.
Maybe next time or another time, if you want to organize another event, I will be pleased.
It just reminds me on one of my
you have
research.
to force them to ask questions.
I got a
Because they learn in
when you talk about media and discourse, I remember my research when I was in a master degree. I studied about rape in Indonesia, and then I examined 3 medias. And you talk about news about Palestine, Palestine, and then how different media cover the fact how different media represents them in a different way. I also studied
Yes, it's interesting.
The representation in media, and it's very interesting. And some media tend to dig reader emotional to provoke them to join jihad, for example. And then also you saw that this content is invite emotion, sympathy. So for me, it's quite different. It's very hard for me to differentiate which one is provocation, which one is sympathy. Yeah, I haven't, I didn't notice that in my previous research until today. I realized, there is a sympathy and there is a provocation. Thank you very much for that.
It depends of individual interpretation. That's pragmatics, man.
Okay.
Everybody are free to interpret.
Yeah.
It depends also a lot it depends on your background knowledge, your experiences, they're all different. So.
Okay then. I think we are done because we are very quiet. Hello, students.
Maybe next time.
Yeah, I think we need to be more specific on a topic like euphemism and then examples of euphemisms in politics or in metaphor.
Sorry?
Probably next time we can go more specific on a topic like we just talked about euphemism.
Members, if we still have a next meeting, it's better for students to share the material before Julia presents, so they can prepare the questions and they can ask. Yeah, if you don't mind.
It really depends on Julia.
To prevent the silence.
Yeah, I think they are very tired because it's 5 o'clock here, in the afternoon. After
maybe we can discuss in the class before we come to the presentation from Julia. So the Zoom will be very, enthusiastic.
I think the students are very tired because it's 5 o'clock here, 5 o'clock. Afternoon, PM, and they are just having a very long walking. So a lot of
from 8 o'clock till 5 p.m. At 5
and then I think the discourse is still very hard for them to choose. Yeah. So probably next time we can more specific on the topic, like like on rhetoric, go deep on discourse analysis and with more examples and example of research. I think that's all.
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to.
But Irshad, gini.
Sorry, if I may.
Do you want to say something?
Just one.
Okay, sorry, I think so. For the last couple minutes,
could you turn on your video, your camera?
Yeah, I got a problem with my connections. I haven't paid my internet bill, so that's why. I kind of missed some point in the topics. So I just kind of have a little bit question. So, is discourse inherently shaped by pragmatic intentions, and even when those intentions are unconscious?
What did you say?
It can. It's all. Is discourse inherently shaped by pragmatic intentions, even when those intentions are unconscious?
Mm-hmm.
Or can discourse ever truly be neutral?
Okay.
Yes, it may happen, or it can be unintentional, of course. It can be, but usually it is intentional, especially when done with a specific purpose, so by politicians, by journalists, advertising companies.
Oh yeah, okay. Thank you. I think that's all. That's all I'm discussing about.
I hope I answered your question. I couldn't hear it quite well, but
I mean, my point is just like about, can it be neutral? Can discourse be neutral? That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay then. So we have 1 hour then. We have used the 1 hour, and I think because the class are quite quiet, and I understand that I think it's hard for me to conclude. I am not a linguistic
Next
person.
time, if you want to arrange something else, then you just, Rose, you can WhatsApp me, write to me, and then we arrange something.
What about if we talk about project? Like what I found in Indonesia, and then what about if we come to a theme? So it is not the student that come talking, but lectures.
Yeah, sure. Let's
So
create a project, a team together. Why not?
like Mem Jamharia, and I think I can do a little
Probably you
bit.
have more funds than me because we don't have funds in Italy, but if you have,
Yeah, we tried. Yeah, hopefully. And yeah, I think so. I mean, we do a meeting via Zoom, and then we try to do a research together. What about that?
yes, let's do something together. Why not?
Let's try. Let's try.
You can think about a project with your colleagues and then tell me.
Yeah.
I would be happy to contribute.
On Discourse. Yeah. So we can publish together.
Yeah, sure.
And then we have also here in Indonesia a very good, a journal with a good reputation.
Oh. It
So
would be interesting to do work on the media. Mm-mm.
So anyway, I think better we close this meeting, and then
Okay.
we're very glad to hear a lot of advance in discourse analysis, which I haven't heard before.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm not a pioneer.
and thank you also
No, I'm not.
for recommending a book that we might use it in the classroom.
Yeah, sure, it's useful. I use it for my students. So
Um, I think so. Thank you so much for sharing.
you're welcome.
And I think that's all for this afternoon. And
Okay.
thank you all students. Thank you for coming, even though you are very quiet, but I promise that I'm
Thank
going
you.
to.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Julia.
Bye. I'll text you later.
So much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.